Hello, everyone. I am ZHAO Chuang. Today, let us draw the skull of Tylosaurus. We have found a lot of skull fossils of Tylosaurus. Although it looked much like Mosasaurus, there were some differences. First, its face was more elongated than that of Mosasaurus. Its teeth were also slightly different from those of Mosasaurus. Mosasaurus had its teeth started from the front of the mouth, but Tylosaurus had a knob at the front of its mouth, so its teeth started from the back near the knob. We should pay attention to several points while drawing its skull. First, as for the overall shape of its teeth, every single one had a very round root, so when drawing its skull, we could see many bumps one by one. Also, we should pay attention to the positions of its eye sockets and nose on the skull. We could only draw its skull more accurately after determining these 2 points. In addition, its mandible was triangular, which was also a relatively unique feature of mosasaurs, and we should pay attention to it as well. Now, let's draw its skull. First, we determine the general position of the skull. Draw the front of its mouth here, and the back of the head here. Its mandible extended backward a bit, so the length of its head was inconsistent with that of its mandible, and the mandible was longer than the upper part. Now, we start to draw its skull. First, determine the position of its eyes. The eyes of Tylosaurus were relatively back, in this position. Its eye sockets were square, with jugal bones under the eyes. Mosasaurs like Tylosaurus had no antorbital fenestra, which was very different from dinosaurs. The antorbital fenestra of lizards had degenerated and disappeared, but there was still a maxilla in the front. We draw the maxilla. First, the upward position was its nostrils. And this was its nasal bone. Next, down this position was its maxilla. It had 12 teeth on its maxilla, and we draw its teeth. While drawing, for these longer teeth, we can highlight their roots, which were relatively round. When it was alive, the rounded parts of the tooth roots were encased in the gums. The longer teeth were concentrated here, and the further back, the smaller the teeth. Ending here. It had 3 teeth on its premaxilla. And we draw its premaxilla first. The front end of its mouth was relatively blunt, forming a knob-like structure like this. The big difference between it and other mosasaurs was that its teeth started from here, making room for the knob to form its premaxilla. Then we draw the top of its skull, and like this, we've finished the upper part of its skull. Its complete skull was very slender. Now we draw the back of its head. The back of its head was not in a complete look. If we only draw the outside of its skull, we'll see that it's a frame. Here was its quadrate bone, with a circular hole in the middle. When alive, there was an eardrum. Then we draw its occipital bone. This is the complete look of its skull. Animals such as lizards don't have complete lateral temporal fenestrae, and their temporal fenestrae disappeared, unlike the dinosaurs having one here. Next, we draw its inner pterygoid. Its pterygoid bone had teeth that grew here, which was also a big feature of Mosasaurus. There were as many as 10 teeth on the pterygoid. With smaller ones at the back, and larger ones at the front. Next is its mandible. As I've mentioned earlier, its mandible was longer, so let's draw the back half of it first. It was mainly composed of 3 large bones, which were joined together by many smaller bones. Here was the widest part of the entire lower jaw, and then forward, the lower jaw became narrow, and the front section was called the dentary bone. There were a total of 13 teeth on the dentary. The middle one's larger, and the back one smaller. It had a row of small holes on its dentary, which were used to provide nutrients to the lips or nearby teeth, called feeding holes. Now we've almost completed its skull. Finally, we draw the part whose fossil was difficult to preserve, namely its sclerotic ring. It was a structure on the eyeball made of a ring of small bones. When alive, this ring of structures was encased in the eyelid, anchoring the muscles, and linked to the eyeball and eyelid. The hole formed inside was its pupil, which means that, when it was alive, the size of its eyes was decided by it. Good, like this, we've finished drawing the skull of Tylosaurus.